Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. I want to wish all of you joining us from around the world a very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for giving us an hour of your time for this overview webinar for the Wharton School's upcoming online program, Mastering Talent Management, Hiring, Engaging, and Rewarding A-plus Talent. We're so thrilled to have all of you here with us today. Let's say hello to our amazing program leader who's on the line with us today. We're so fortunate to have her here, not just the person who helps lead this program, but also the person who helped build this program. Jessica Graposo is on the line with us today. Jessica, good morning.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening. I am the Senior Director of People and Culture at an AI tech firm, and I actually had the great fortune of being a part of helping this program come to life, as Mark mentioned. So I helped the wonderful folks over at Wharton develop the program and have been involved in it from the very start, which was just a little over a year ago. So we've run several sessions of this program and continue to fine tune it and make it better and better. So I'm very excited to share with you what the professors have put together. There's really some incredible content, and I'm excited to tell you more about it today. So stay tuned and we'll dive a little bit deeper shortly. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Jessica. So yes, friends, we're going to be diving into this a little bit more. I just want to quickly say hello to Portia, who's joining us from Dubai. So very good evening, I think that would be, joining us from the UAE. So thank you for joining us, Portia. Thank you for being here. So before we get into the nitty gritty, before we get into the actual content, go week by week, the real question is, why learn this content through Wharton online? Why Wharton? And the shortest possible answer is Wharton is not only one of the best business schools in the world, it also happens to be the oldest. Founded in 1881, it is the oldest collegiate business school attached to the famed Ivy League University of Pennsylvania. And the Wharton School is recognized all around the world, both for its intellectual leadership and its ongoing innovation across every major discipline of business education. And right now, Wharton is creating economic and social value all around the world, not just with its broad global community of graduates and students, but also being able to boast one of the most published business school faculties there is. At any given time, the school has about 5,000 students spread across its undergraduate MBA, executive MBA, and doctoral programs. More than 13,000 participants in its executive education programs every single year. And thanks to being the oldest business school attached to a college in the world, and also with all those students, it has a global alumni network of almost 100,000 graduates. And with more than 50 online programs for which to choose, just like this one, more than 3 million learners just like you all around the world have accessed Wharton online programming taught by Wharton's world-class faculty. This program in particular has 3 incredible Wharton faculty associated with it, but Jessica's going to be talking a little bit more about that in just a moment. And to perfectly capture the Wharton spirit, we have this great quote from the dean of the Wharton School. Erica James has been the dean of Wharton for a couple years now, and this quote perfectly captures the spirit of Wharton. Today's environment means you can't afford to simply respond to or manage change. The best businesses must anticipate change and even intentionally create change so as not to become complacent. And at Wharton, we are excited to be the partner to help you get there. And things have been changing so rapidly the past 2.5 years, have seen so many changes, so many challenges. So it has never, ever been more important to be anticipating those changes and even intentionally creating changes, being on the wavefront of those changes. And to take us through this amazing program and talk about how this program can help you best anticipate change and intentionally create change, I'm going to hand things back over to Jessica for our program overview to tell you all about this amazing program, Mastering Talent Management. So Jessica, it's all yours.
Thank you again, Mark. Thanks everybody for joining us. Really excited to tell you more about this program. I have been engaged in this program for a little over a year, so I do know it fairly well. So if you're here and you're curious about the program, that's likely because you already are aware that recruiting, hiring, and retaining top talent is really what we all need to be focused on in order to achieve company success, right? It's very crucial to what we're doing. If you want to go on to the next slide, There are some statistics here on the slide that I think speak to that rather well. In particular, top talent stays available for an average of 10 days before getting hired, right? And some might argue with the changing world that we have right now, that's actually become even less than that. So knowing that we have such a tight window to make decisions and bring great talent into our organizations, it's really beneficial to start to master some of the strategies and frameworks that will help us be successful in that area. So as you're likely experiencing, if you're here and you're looking into programs like this and looking to build better strategies for your overall talent strategy, you probably have already started to experience the paradigm is continuing to shift a bit, right? As the markets become more competitive due to the recent pandemic and so many changing needs of potential employees and folks being more focused on work-life balance, and really just the market has almost flipped. It used to be that we, as having excellent organizations and strong areas to pull talent into, held the upper hand, and now it's sort of the opposite, in that employees sort of hold that upper hand, and we have to work together and build strategies that really help us stand out from the other folks in the market. So this is something that's addressed within the framework of this program, so it's really exciting. We do focus on recognizing what the current and future market needs are likely to be. The program is deeply rooted in academia, so I will say, while we don't spend a ton of time on looking what is currently going on in the market through the actual course program, we spend a lot of time in our office hours, which I will host separately. And when I host those office hours, we'll dive a little bit more into what's happening in the here and now and how to operationalize all of the great things that we're going to be picking up from the three professors in this program. So additionally to being able, not only being able to attract the right talent, but engage them will be another huge focus, right? Because once you've found the talent, you also need to keep them engaged and want to be staying within your workforce. So we'll provide a lot of data supporting that more highly engaged, the more highly engaged your workforce is, the more profitable your organization will be. And we'll dive deeper into that as well. And that's why we have several professors within this organization. So I'm going to spend a few minutes diving a little deeper into these areas when we review the program topics. But the first thing I'd love to do is actually introduce you to that knowledgeable faculty. So you want to move forward to the next slide. These are the folks that will be presenting the Mastering Talent Management course when you actually go in and take the course. So first we have Professor Matthew Bidwell, who is the primary faculty on this particular program. Wonderful professor to work with, and you'll actually get an opportunity to meet with him as we do a live webinar about midway through the session, where he comes forward and we have a really open dialogue without a formal agenda, where we can talk a little bit about what is going on and some of the challenges that we're facing as folks that are working in the talent strategy space. So he holds a PhD from MIT Sloan, and his career at Wharton is predominantly focused on people analytics. So he's really focused on looking at people analytics from the guise of current and future state of talent strategy. So you can see a lot of his great research is very well known and highly published. He also uses a lot of it throughout this course. That research can be found in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, a lot of academic journals. So there's a lot of really great information and research that his subject matter is rooted in that will be great to learn more about. And he's really going to be focusing on that academic research and the methodology behind effective hiring and interview strategies. And that will last for a couple of weeks in this course. He'll be our primary professor. And then we will move on to another professor. So we have the pleasure of also having a second professor, who is Professor Cade Massey, and he holds a PhD from the University of Chicago. Professor Massey's research is based more in the judgment under uncertainty realm, and he spends a great deal of his time really starting to pick apart the pitfalls that judgment can create when it comes to people operations. A lot of his research and focus is really deeply rooted in performance management, so that's where we'll shift when we shift over to Professor Massey, and there's a lot of great information there and how we tie performance management into engagement and how we tie it into our overall talent strategy to be able to retain talent long term. He has a very interesting background that I love to share because it's fun, and you'll hear him allude to these passions when he speaks throughout his seminars, but he co-hosts a Sirius XM business radio show. That show is actually called Wharton Moneyball, and he's received a lot of awards in the HR organizational behavior space, and he speaks a little bit about them on that program as well. But he's also a huge football fan. So be prepared for lots of sports metaphors. Regardless of if you're a football fan, that is where his passion lies. So he uses it a lot to help kind of explain some of the strategies and research that he's done. And it's very interesting. So he'll come in a bit later in the course, and he'll focus on the frameworks that really start to support that performance management strategy. And from there, last but not least, we're actually going to pivot to a third professor, which I must say I do help program lead on several programs within the Wharton platform. And you are not always blessed to have this many wonderful professors. So you're going to get access to a lot of wonderful information and great minds. But last but not least, we have Professor Ewan Barankay, who holds a PhD from the University of Warwick. And Professor Barankay is more of a behavioral economist, who focuses on designing incentives that increase productivity and ultimately profit. So what he is really focused on is looking at how his research applies to the economic impacts that things such as engagement and reward strategies have in the workplace. So he's going to round out the last 2 weeks for us in our course with a deep focus on engagement strategies that will be tied into that academic research. And it's really relative to rewards and incentives. And oddly enough, those rewards and incentives aren't solely rooted in monetary incentives. So he'll talk a lot about that as well. And it's a really great way to start to introduce some of those strategies if you're not already using them in the workplace, or to fine tune the ones that you have. So collectively, these professors will work to give you the knowledge you need to hire top talent and implement some critical strategies that are very impactful based on years of ongoing research. And they really do focus on ways to do this, both in terms of actually searching for that talent and then finding ways to retain it long term. So very useful information and some really wonderful minds that we'll be learning from together. So with that, if you want to pivot over to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about the key program takeaways. This program is 6 weeks long, and it really is going to enable you to start to develop an effective and diverse hiring process. So whether you have none and you're just getting started, or you already have one that isn't as successful as you'd like, we touch on strategies from all lenses. And the reason I like to point that out is if you're early in your career and you're just starting to explore this space, or if you've been doing it for 20 or 30 years, we tend to get folks across that entire spectrum in this course every time. And the great news with that is that you also have the opportunity for some thought leadership and some operationalizing, brainstorming and networking together that can be incredibly useful for people who are at all ends of that spectrum. So in this course, we're going to touch on strategies for promoting diversity, developing effective interview strategies, internal promotions and how to look at internal candidates and where their strengths lie, and making sure that you're paying attention to those folks so that you're either helping to manage them up to become leaders within your organization, and or making sure that folks who need more support are getting it, and ways to watch for things like that. We'll also learn about employee engagement at a deep level, performance management, and much more. So there's a lot of great information within the program that really touches on all of those topics. The one area we don't dive into, and I like to explain this up front, is sort of where do you go to actually find the talent, right? So if you're looking for solutions for locating talent, what types of sites to use or things of that nature, we sort of start our journey a little bit after that, right? We start at our journey at the point of interviewing, really. So when we're talking about hiring, I just like to point that out because that tends to be a question that comes up from a lot of folks. So I'll pause there for a moment, and then let's pivot over into taking a closer look at the weekly module topics for the program so I can show you exactly what this program looks like. Excuse me, lots of talking, need a little bit of water there. All right, so as we think about the modules in the program, I kind of laid that out a little bit for you as I talked about each professor and sort of the topics they cover, but let me go a little bit deeper in them. We'll start with module 1. Which is referred to as the hiring process. In Module 2, hiring A+ talent and interviews. Both of these are led by Professor Bidwell. Module 1, we're really going to focus on evaluating the importance of effective hiring. And we're going to start to outline some methods for how you strategically evaluate candidates and how you do so in an unbiased manner, and start to remove some of the criticality and bias that exists in the hiring process that a lot of organizations don't always take into consideration. So we'll look at things like structured interviews and things of that nature. You'll learn about common biases that can be present during the evaluation phase. You'll learn about how to analyze and implement frameworks that will help you address those, as well as we'll talk a little bit in our office hours about how can you also get your workforce engaged and supportive of that. And from there, it moves very nicely into Module 2, in which we start to talk about how do we construct criteria to conduct effective interviews? How do we make sure that we're asking the right types of questions and that we're comparing apples to apples at all times? Are we evaluating candidates in a fair manner? And are we making sure that we're evaluating candidates based on the right criteria versus just a gut feeling, or the fact that someone is in an alma mater that you were in, or that their parents know your parents, or that they like golf and you have a customer who likes golf. All of the unique, weird things that sometimes we make hiring decisions on that don't actually have a lot of place in effective interviewing. And so we'll talk a little bit about how to start to educate your hiring managers to remove some of that and really develop a really constructive, effective interview process, and to take a look at how new technologies can actually help improve the hiring process. And from there, we will hop over to one last session with Professor Bidwell, which is Module 3. And Module 3 is engaging A+ talent. And in this particular module, we are focused on learning the importance of really engaging these people, right? And this is at all phases. This is during the interview process and their first experience with your organization, all the way through being a longtime employee and ensuring that we're properly having several appraisal methods and strategies for increasing engagement in place so that we can continue to retain that talent. So we'll spend some time diving into that before Professor Bidwell will step away and hand things over to Professor Massey, which is in Module 4. And in that module, we're going to start to analyze some of the common mishaps that are really made in performance management. We're sort of going to start to dissect the traps that hinder the accurate assessment of talent. And so we're not just going to talk about performance management and why it matters, because most of us in this industry know that. We're actually going to dig a little deeper into the things that tend to trap us and our hiring managers into a place that make it so that we're not using the data or the approach to performance management in a way that's most effective. So it's a really useful session with Professor Massey. And we'll also explore the performance management pyramid, which is something that typically I find I get a lot of feedback from participants from that they've not actually heard of or applied in that manner. It's a very useful tool that can be applied to any industry. So we'll look at that and sort of the prescriptions to improve evaluative practices using that. So it'll be pretty exciting and tends to be something that people comment on the most. So there's definitely a lot of value in it. And then from there, we're going to hop over to our last two sessions, which is Module 5 and Module 6. Rewards and incentives is Module 5, and then strategic implementation of those incentives is Module 6. So they play on each other back to back, and they're both sponsored and spoken about by Professor Barangay. So what you'll do finally is you'll be empowered to start to analyze any situation and design an incentive for it. And as I mentioned, we will look at incentives in a very unique way. You'll learn that incentives do not just change behavior, they actually improve employee morale, and they show the world what the organization values. And he will actually spend some time diving into those from multiple lenses that aren't solely based in a monetary world. So if it's about budgeting and not necessarily having enough support to be able to provide rewards and incentives, he'll talk about other ways that you can start to use that type of model in a non-monetary way as well. So lots of really exciting and great information here. I assume that most of this content is shared with you, and you can go through and read some of the bullets in more detail as well. But as you embark on this learning journey, you should really prepare yourself to engage with some very valuable content from some very profound professors, and it's really designed to help you master that talent management strategy. And for some of you, some of this may be new, some may not. For some of you, you're looking to hone in and adjust some of the process that you have, and we'll talk about those in various ways as we go. And we'll do what we refer to as deeper diving learning in our office hour each week that pertains to the content from each week and how we can apply it in real time. And we also have a wonderful opportunity to bring you all together in a networking session where we'll really talk about operationalizing some of this in real time with real examples. So lots of great data, lots of great information, lots of great conversation that happens in this journey. And I really do hope that from here, I'm actually going to turn it back over to Mark.
Jessica, thank you so much for that excellent overview. Let me tell you a little bit about what your program experience will be. So we've talked about what you will learn. Let's talk a little bit about how you will learn. Well, the first thing I want to cover is that you will feel supported throughout this program. You have 3 rockstar faculty giving you video lectures and content. You have Jessica as your program leader, who's going to be doing live office hours and guiding you through the content and giving you feedback on your assignments. And then you also have program support, who is going to be there for any technical or logistical problems. They're going to be available to you by phone or by email. So throughout this program, you will feel supported. We don't just throw a lot of content at you. We don't just send you a whole bunch of YouTube links and then hope that you follow through. That is not how this program works. It is a dynamic, engaging, and supportive program. Many of the things covered here about your learning experience, what makes it unique, are things that Jessica has already covered. That live faculty forum, you'll be able to contact and interact directly with Professor Bidwell. That's that capstone project, the strategy playbook, where you're going to be building on frameworks that are covered in every single module and putting that all together into that capstone project, which I am going to ask Jessica a little bit more about, just because that's one of the highlights of this program. You're going to have tried activities to get your hands dirty, discussions, polls. So you're going to be interacting with your fellow students as well. Those moderated discussion boards that are going to be up. And so any time, no matter what time zone you're in, you're going to be able to have back and forths with all of your classmates on these discussion boards, industry examples. And on that bottom left, some people see that and they have that little moment of panic. They see knowledge check and they think to themselves, oh no, I don't like quizzes. I don't like tests. I always tested really badly when I was in school. I want you to think of the knowledge checks as another form of support, because the purpose of this program is to give you the content and information and skill and education that you need to apply this to your present and future careers. And it doesn't do you any good unless you are assured that you are retaining and digesting all the information we're throwing at you, all this great content, all this information, all this wisdom. So for that, we have these knowledge checks where we just, ask you some questions, see how you're doing, so that you know that you can feel supported and know that you are retaining all this information and it is going to stay with you in the coming months and years. So think of the knowledge checks again as another form of support, not as a judgment, but as something to help you feel assured that you really are retaining everything you're learning from week to week. So in summary, what you can expect every single week, our students spend about 4 to 6 hours per week on this program. That is the range, not an average. So when I say 4 to 6 hours per week, that doesn't mean that some students are taking 2 hours and some students are taking 12 hours. 4 to 6 hours is the range that our students spend on their learning over the course of 6 weeks of content. But that first note there about bite-sized learning, what that means is the whole purpose of online learning is that it's flexible, but not all online programs are made to be as flexible as possible. And if I were to say, if this were a synchronous learning environment, if this were a traditional academic environment, and a course said that it took 4 to 6 hours per week, that would probably mean 2 or 3 hours at a time, 2 or 3 times a week. That's what 4 to 6 hours per week means in an on-campus environment. But if you're going to be off campus, if you're going to be learning online, then it's not any more flexible if the course also demands that you set aside an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours at a time to your learning. So we've broken this down into what we call bite-sized learning, meaning that some of these video lectures, they are 7 minutes, 5 minutes, some of them are even 3 minutes long, so that no matter what schedule you have, no matter how you've achieved any semblance of work-life balance, wherever you can find 3 minutes here, 5 minutes there, you can devote that time to your learning. So say you have a 20-minute train commute, and that doesn't seem like enough time to really dive into any topic. you can watch 3 or 4 video lectures on the way to work, 3 or 4 video lectures on the way home from work, and all those 3-minute video lectures, you can add them up wherever you can find the time, and you can find that you really do have 3 or 4 hours free, even if it's only 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there. That's why we've broken it down into bite-sized learning, to make this program convenient for any schedule. And again, we understand that adult learners have many different methods that work for them. So your learning will take the form of assignments, quizzes, peer learning discussions, webinars, dynamic, engaging program, and again, frequent course communications from Jessica, your program leader, to guide you through the experience, who's going to be there every step of the way, live office hours, moderating those discussion boards. So every step of the way, you will feel supported, you will feel encouraged, and by the end, you will feel enriched by this dynamic and engaging course. And upon successful completion of the program, you're going to earn a verified digital certificate of completion from the Wharton School. This is a great tool to put in your toolbox. Some students love it because they put it on their resume, and then you can bring it, and then it's a topic of conversation when you go into an interview for a future job, or maybe a performance review for your current job. And you never know, you might find that someone else on the other side of the table also took a Wharton online program. Like we said, more than 3 million learners all around the world have access to Wharton online programming. So you never know, you might find someone on the other side of the table who's also studied through Wharton online, and you will have a common language or vernacular with them. But a lot of our students also find this beneficial to put on their social media. You can see there, some put it on their Facebook or Twitter, but you put this on your LinkedIn, and you will be able to connect not only with the other learners in your cohort, but it is a great, easy way to connect with students in past cohorts, students in future cohorts. So this is a fantastic networking tool that's a huge benefit to our students, and immensely popular. Just another feather in your cap, just another bonus out of this amazing course. The content and knowledge and wisdom speaks for itself, but this is just one more big plus to this program. Now, with that, program support is putting a link up in the chat box that you can click on to register for this program, Mastering Talent Management through the Wharton School. The next cohort starts soon, so please go ahead, click on that link, register for this program. Even if you can't register right now, even if you have another Zoom or you have another meeting, just click on the link and keep it open in your browser so that it is there when you have the time to register. If you're anything like me, your browser already has 50 tabs open, so go ahead, click on that link, make this the 51st tab open in your browser. Do not miss the opportunity to join the next cohort, which is surely just around the corner. So please go ahead, click on that link, register for this program, Mastering Talent Management, Hiring, Engaging, and Rewarding A+ Talent. So, Jessica, if there's a scheduled course, what is the schedule? So, Jessica, this course is pretty much overwhelmingly asynchronous. There's no schedule, but there is a schedule for those webinars and office hours, yes?
Yeah, that's correct. So the way that it works is each module opens up on a Thursday and is due by the following Thursday. So you essentially have a week to get all the content done. There is some content within it that's optional for you to complete, and then there's some required content to complete. And so you do have to hit all the marks for the required content in order to earn your certificate, but there is no scheduled time that you have to be present. The beauty of what we do and the way that we're able to offer this to people all over the globe is exactly that you can do it in the time that works right for you within that week. So each week you have to make the time to actually do the program and get your assignments turned in. We do have live office hours and that live faculty webinar, as well as a live networking event. None of them are actually required. So we do record them and we post all of them along with the slides that are covered within them, with the exception of the networking event. That one is not recorded. So you'll have access to go back and look at them after the fact. We encourage you to join live because the networking aspect of office hours and kind of diving a little deeper is really a huge benefit to the program, but it's not required. So the joy is that you can fit all of this into your schedule whenever is best for you.
Now, Jessica, I know that it's different for different Wharton online programs, but I feel like with many Wharton online programs, the live office hours, or at least the faculty webinar, tend to happen at about the same time that the marketing webinar happens. So could we expect the live office hours, or at least the webinar with Professor Bidwell, would that probably happen at about this time?
That is actually accurate. They do the live session with Professor Bidwell can sometimes range between the hour before now and the hour after now, but tends to be right around this time. And nearly all of the office hours occur on the same day each week around this time as well. There'll be perhaps 1 week where there's a conflict where we've shifted it slightly. You will know the schedule in full up front, and you'll have an opportunity to be able to download it all right to your calendar so that you can make it work with your existing schedule, but you are accurate that it is roughly around this time.
Awesome. So if you're here for this marketing webinar right now, if this fits into your schedule right now, then probably that is about the same time that the other live components of this program will fit in as well. Jessica, is there any course content related to outsourcing, for example, on projects, or is it only about in-house long-term hires?
We do touch a little bit on kind of the gig economy and outsourcing, but more so from a lens of how it competes with retaining existing talent, and how you can sometimes offset your need for attracting and finding talent with some of the gig economy, but we don't spend a lot of time in this particular course focused on that particular area.
So if someone wants to know, so there's no aspect in this program of should I hire, so there's no like moment where we say, hey, in this situation, should I hire a contractor or a gig worker, or in this situation, should I hire someone in permanent in-house full-time? There's no discussion like that.
Yeah, not directly. I mean, we do touch on that a little bit in that it plays a role and kind of touches the space, and that we know that different organizations utilize that strategy. So we'll mention it in some of the frameworks that we talk about, but not really in a definitive way as it being a particular strategy for talent management.
But let me throw something else at you, Jessica. So, but in these moderated discussion boards, so you're going to be moderating these discussion boards and everyone's going to be talking, but those topics that our students talk about amongst themselves with your moderation, those topics do tend to follow whatever our students are talking about, right? So this topic might come up in a discussion board.
Absolutely. So there is a lot of conversation that goes on within the discussions that is really rooted in reality, right? What we're experiencing right now. We frame the general discussion questions that you have to respond to as part of the program in a way that you can apply what's happening in reality, what you're experiencing now. But there's also a lot of conversation that goes on that goes far beyond that. And we also do use our office hours and networking event to talk about a lot of those operational types of topics that maybe were only lightly touched on within the subject matter, or as this would be a good example, we don't necessarily dive deep into, but someone might be facing a challenge or looking for some best practices. So there's a great deal of opportunity to kind of get some of that thought leadership from your peers and from myself as we join together in those sessions, both asynchronously through the discussion boards and when we meet live. So we certainly have opportunities to discuss some of those things. I just wouldn't say that the professor spends a great deal of time talking about outsourcing.
Thank you so much, Jessica. That's perfect. Because also, this is also a great opportunity to emphasize that, participating in these live components really does make the difference between how enriching this course is for our students, because we have such a great industrial diversity, global diversity, and diversity of experience in these programs that, you will be in this program with someone in a completely different industry down the street, and possibly also someone in the exact same industry on the other side of the world. So being able to participate in those discussion boards, participate in those live office hours, it really is what makes this program so rich and dynamic.
Absolutely. And there's a lot to be said about learning from one another, just from the cultural norms that differentiate where we are in the world and within our industries too. So even myself, I learn a great deal from the participants all the time, from things they're trying in different parts of the world that either we haven't tried here, excuse me, that we haven't tried here successfully, or that we've not even thought of. So there's a great deal that can be learned from one another as well.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I would love to hear a little bit more about this playbook that our students create throughout the 6 weeks of this program, and then take with them into their firms, into their companies, into their present and future careers.
Sure. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. A lot of talking this morning. I'd love to tell you more about it because it's actually one of my favorite features of this particular program. The Talent Strategy Playbook is a book that you'll have that will stay with you through the whole course. So every week, your required assignment lives within this playbook, and it's a very large playbook that goes with you from module to module. And it's where you'll actually complete your assignment and turn in your assignment. But what it does is it allows you to kind of gather all of the information that you need for the varying strategies and frameworks that we're going to talk about and put it all in one place and sort of add a tool to your toolbox that you can take with you and refer back to. There's a place in it for all of the notes from your module interactions and what you learn and want to make note of throughout the journey. And then your assignments live in there. And there's a lot of added information and whatnot there. So what it does is it enables you to walk away with one single document that really encompasses everything that you took with you on this journey and that you learned and that you found valuable, and really enables you a smooth and easy transition into reality and being able to use a lot of the strategy development that you'll be doing within the courses, within the modules rather, to take them away with you and be able to share them with your colleagues, your leadership, and start to implement some of those frameworks. And that talent strategy playbook is going to play really nicely into culminating into your final capstone project, because you'll actually pick one of the frameworks and strategies that we discuss across the 6 weeks, and you'll choose one that's a problem within your organization or an organization that you're familiar with. And you'll use the information and the data and the activities that you've done throughout the course to actually build a more defined strategy and a PowerPoint deck that you would essentially be able to present to your organization. So you'll be turning it in for your final credit for the course, but it's designed in a way that then you can go back and say, I heard someone say, my boss signed me up for this course. You can go back and say, hey, Mr. Boss, I took this course. This is what I walked away with. Let me show you this great presentation that I put together on how we can actually apply some of the strategies and frameworks that I've learned and how I think they'll benefit our organization. So your final capstone project is actually a very realistic and applicable solution for you to take back to your organization and start to implement. So it gets you thinking about that as well. And all of that ties into your talent strategy playbook. So you really do walk away with some really helpful information and useful tools that are all in one place for you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Is there anything more that you want to leave our future students with before I let everybody go?
I think I would just like to say I do hope that many of you are able to join us. If you come up with additional questions, as Mark said, there's other ways to reach out and get more information. But I promise you that you will definitely walk away, whether you are new to this area in this industry, or if you are a long time, well-educated professional within this industry, you will walk away with some information, tools, strategies, frameworks that are really going to make a difference and impact. I mean, I've worked with folks who are in executive positions within HR who have been doing this for 30 years through this program. And I've worked with people who are brand new to the industry and just transitioned into HR and are just starting to take on talent strategy as a requirement of their new role. So you can be anywhere in that journey and find a lot of valid information and useful data that you can walk away with and really invoke some true change within your organization. So I look forward to meeting some of you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. How many people generally take the program? Does it really vary, or are cohorts usually about the same size?
Honestly, surprisingly, for this particular course, they've been roughly the same size, although I do find for most courses they vary greatly. And this particular course has been in very high demand. I tend to have anywhere from 50 to 70 students each run of this course. So it's a really large engagement, a really large mix of people. And what's great about that is they're from all over the world and from all different industries. And so the thought leadership and the networking that transpires and the conversations that happen are incredibly useful. We learn a lot because it's not just a small group and it's not folks that are just from one particular industry. People join us from literally all over the world and from almost any industry you can think of. In fact, in my last run of this course, I actually had somebody who owned a dog grooming and daycare service who was looking to implement an HR structure because he's never really had one. That was the first time I ever had someone from that industry, so it stands out in my mind. But really, we get folks from all over, and so it's quite a large group. It doesn't take away from the experience for them to be more people. In fact, when there's a larger group, I think you learn a lot more from each other, and the engagement level that you have both with myself and Professor Bidwell doesn't change based on the size of the group. I would say on average, probably only about 15 to 20 of those folks even are able to join live. So most of those folks are just contributing on their own separately. So it doesn't kind of overtake things. So don't be scared of that number. You'll actually find there's a lot of benefit to it because you'll learn a lot from a lot of different minds.
That was actually going to be my follow-up question, Jessica, and you answered it perfectly without me having to ask it about the level of engagement in the live webinars and live office hours with the class size. So, Jessica, thank you so much for answering that for me. If you have any additional questions at any time, you can always send your questions to wharton@emeritus.org. Again, that is wharton@emeritus.org. I want to thank our amazing program leader and subject matter expert, Jessica Graposo. Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for your expertise in taking us through these modules.
You are very welcome. Thank you for having me, and thank you everybody for joining to learn more.
Yes, and I want to echo that as well. Thank you. Thank all of you for joining us today. Thank you for giving us an hour of your time today to learn more about the Wharton School's online program, Mastering Talent Management, Hiring, Engaging, and Rewarding A+ Talent. So happy to have all of you here with us today. Program support has put that link back up in the chat box that you can click on to register for the next cohort of this program. So please go ahead, click on that link so that you can register at your convenience. We look forward to having you in the next cohort. But until then, have a beautiful day, everybody. We can't wait to have you in the class, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you all so much. Bye-bye now, everybody.